Well, hello again. It is, close to midnight here in New York, here in Manhattan on the Upper West Side. And there is some sort of nasty, gnarly mix-up here going on outside my window, about 11 floors down, between a garbage truck and a couple of cabs. And there seems to be a whole lot of honking going on. Fortunately, as you can see, we are not in Manhattan. We're on the ramp here at KDXR in Danbury, and the reason why we're here is because of what went on in that hangar right over there on Saturday night. I don't know whether everybody saw my last video, but I think I mentioned that my buddy Les had just flown his last flight for American Airlines after 34 years with the company. I met him through my job at CNN. He was writing airline stuff for CNN.com, and MH370 went down, and he sort of became joined at the hip with everybody on the TV side, and so I got to know him, and he is an absolute prince among men. He spent the beginning of his career in Alaska flying for, I think, Wien Air Alaska. And it's funny because the Wien brothers, or at least one of them I know, flies for American right now, but Les ended up at American flying 727s, moved up to the 75 and 767, and then ended his career on the 777, mainly flying to and from London, with some detours to Barcelona and Milan and Rome and Buenos Aires and Rio and all sorts of other great places. So kudos there. I'm just doing a control system check. I reinstalled Windows. I started to make this video yesterday, and my Windows installation started giving me such utter and unendurable grief that I just nuked the whole goddamn thing. But here is, here before we go any further, here is Les's last flight. This is Bruce, his first officer on the radio to start out with here, talking to Kennedy Tower. They're flying the Canarsie approach into 13 left, and Les flew the leg, and so Bruce is on the radios, but you'll hear Les too.
American 105 Heavy Tier 2 flying this thing. Is it Captain Abend?
This will be his last landing, yep.
Yeah, better make it a good one.
Now the pressure's on, thanks a lot.
American 105 Heavy, nicely done, 10 out of 10. From all of us up here, thank you so much for all your years of dealing with us, and obviously doing a great job. Congratulations on your retirement. Right Bravo ramp, and monitor ground point out.
Right Bravo ramp, point 9, thank you for your service after all these 34 years. Appreciate it very much, gentlemen.
Take it easy.
So that was his last flight on Tuesday, and we threw a little shindig for him here. We held it in the hangar right here, and this is obviously some planes up on lifts, but this is where he keeps, well, that Arrow 2 right there is his plane. Let me see if I've got a better shot of it here. Oh God. That's me in a 1937 J-3 Cub. Those are my knees right there. There's the stick. I flew it a little bit. I could barely move the rudder pedals. My legs were so cramped up. But yeah, this is it. And you see that seat right there, how far forward it was. I'm 6'5" and I'm 220 pounds. The airplane was already a little nose heavy to begin with, so it was kind of a fun flight. But let me see if I can find, oh well, there's Les. He also writes the jump seat column for Flying Magazine, and that is his Arrow. It is, well, let's just say that after every single flight, he's reaching into the cargo compartment right here, where he pulls out a rag and some Windex, and he wipes off every goddamn last surface to get every bug off of the airplane. He, to say to say that he babies this plane would not even do the word babies justice. I've never seen a human being obsess over his airplanes the way Les does. You can see there's armor all in the tires. It just had its annual. The prop was replaced. This is a new wing. The whole thing's got a new paint job. It is November 272 LC, Lima Charlie, for Les and Carol. Carol is, well, there's Les. There's Carol, his wife of, I don't know, 30 some odd years. And she is absolutely magnificent, as you can well tell. And this is our flight up in a, in the old, let me see if I can find it here. I made a little recording here of the trip in the Cub here, so there we go.
Do you need to see? Okay.
And you know what? That's great, but there's no video because whatever component that Windows is supposed to use to play this doesn't exist anymore because I blew it out. But hold on a second. Videolan.org. This is, it's hard to describe how much I hate Windows. I'm just sorry that the Mac doesn't use NVIDIA hardware, because I would be running X-Plane on it forever and a day in a heartbeat. I briefly had a Mac, an iMac Pro, which was really good, except my yoke doesn't work with Mac, and I'd have to get a separate computer to run the yoke and all sorts of crazy crap. But when it really comes right down to it, there is nothing like a Mac for just not pissing you off. So let me just see if I can run this now with VLC. There we go. Okay.
Do you need to see? Okay. Oh, you can probably do this by feel anyway.
Here we are, going off for runway 8 here.
Ready.
And we're practically up before the numbers. Look at this. The pilot, by the way, is a guy named Tim Knutson from Wisconsin. He's a lobbyist for the AOPA in Washington, and he lost his son, 17 years old, Owen, in a J-3, his J-3 as a matter of fact, just about 8 months ago. And the very first thing he did when he arrived at Danbury was he found the guy who owned the Cub, and he said, I want to take people up for some flights, and do you mind? And the guy said, I think he knew him, and he said, yeah, no problem. And the first thing he did was he went over to Les's friend Tom, who's about my height, maybe an inch shorter, and a little bit older, and he said, come on, you want to come up? And Tom says, I can't fit into that thing. And so he looked at me, and I said, well, if he can't fit into that thing, he says, oh, come on, try it. And so I wedged myself into it, and I'm really glad I did. It was such a tight fit that I could barely distinguish between the toe brakes and the rudder pedals because my feet were just jammed up so close to everything else. I managed to fly it around, and we'll fly around where we went because it's beautiful flying. But the squeeze was so tight and my body was shoved so far back and my arms were so long and sort of like gawking out everywhere that I was operating his carb heat, and he was barefoot because when he was wearing shoes, they kept bumping up against me. So he took off his shoes, flew the airplane barefoot. We did a touch and go coming in, which because the frontward balance, we tried to 3-point it, and it was a little bit rough. And so the very first words out of his mouth were, requesting a clearance on the go. And we got one, and we came back around, and he did a wheel landing that was like out of a textbook. So I was blocking all his gauges. I asked him if he needed to see anything or if he needed to know anything, and he said, "Son, I've never flown a Cub looking at an airspeed indicator in my life." So we're going to strive to emulate his airmanship a little bit and try and get this right here. We're flying a Bonanza here, and I was so shocked looking at the comparison between Les's Arrow here, which seats 4 people, and 6-cylinder engine, retractable, etc., etc., etc. About the same price, about the same class, and comparing it with, if you can see right here, the Bonanza, and you look at the difference between the two, and you realize just how big and fat the Bonanza is. You don't realize how big it is and how tall it is from here to here. If you look at the difference between cowling heights here, frontal, area, it is a remarkably bigger airplane in a lot of respects, even though it's also a 4-seater. And so I'm flying in this plane right here, the Coronado, with the SimCoders pack, and you look at it and you realize, it kind of looks kind of like a tight squeeze, but you compare that to an Arrow or a Cherokee or something like that, and you realize, wow, it's not too it's not too porky. So let's get going here and see if we can make it work. So we'll get full rich, turn on our nav lights, turn on our beacon, make sure our parking brakes are set. They are. Let me just see why that isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing. I don't think I need the avionics on for this, but let's see, alternator batteries. Well, it's on now. And it's loud. Hang on, apologies for that. It's like getting everything set up all over again. Oh, and it doesn't have the TAWs or anything else set up. Ah, great. Well, we're not really relying on this. We don't care. It doesn't matter. But let me see if our switches and things work. Okay, flaps work. All right, we're in reasonably good shape. So we'll turn on the fuel pump to prime the thing. We just want to look for peak fuel flow, which will be right about there. See if it comes up. And it doesn't, but I know why. It's a dumb thing. Our tanks are off. We'll just turn it on the left tank. And actually, now that we've done that, we don't need our avionics. We should actually have them off. So we're going to look for peak fuel flow right here. We should get some sound, but we don't. All right, there we go. Let me just briefly play around with this. Open the window. See if... No, I got nothing. I know why we got nothing. Now we got something. Do we? No, we don't. Oh, I know why we've got nothing. Look. When I broke Windows, I turned that off here now. Ah, sweet, sweet sounds. All right, good. All right, full rich, full fine, throttle crackhead. And let's crank her up. Yikes. Oh, gracious. It's actually very good sound, but not too much of a good thing here. That's about right. Alright, get the avionics back on. There we go. Oh, sweetie, say goodnight. Gotta say goodnight. Hang on a second. She calls me Wabbit. I call her Quail. Nighty, sweet Quail. Gotta be careful about sending the wrong emoji. Alright, now we should get a TAWS system test. There we go.
TAWS system test okay.
Oh, that's beautiful. Alright, let's see if our trim works. Hey, it does. Get that about neutral. There we go. We don't need any flaps. Let's see. Cylinder head temperature's fine. Oil temperature's in the green. We're neither inordinately chargeful or dischargeful. That's good. We got oil pressure. We're sucking. We're blowing. Doing all the good things. Lean out a little bit for the ground. Does not seem to do a damn thing. I think that's a little bit not right, but oh, there we go. It just started to peak up in temp. Alright, center altimeter, which is actually right about there. And let's make our way out to runway 8. Right there. This runway is only about 4,000 feet long, and it's got a displaced threshold, and the tower does actually not look like that. But it actually lands some decent-sized business jets. A couple of Citation 2s are based out of here. Tom has got a Citation Mustang. He owns one of the FBOs here. There are 2 of them. And actually, this approach is less interesting than the one into 2.6. We'll come back for 2.6. But we'll just go out where we were. See how this airplane flies. I want to get AeroSim Gaming's Cub, but I'm not going to get it until X-Plane works its ground handling shit out. Because as much as I want to learn tail draggers, I actually want to learn them the right way. So there we are. Our transponder is transponding. This hill is actually a significant little obstacle. That's why there's that displaced threshold. But we will get all of our lights on. Won't need pitot heat, but we'll get it on out of superstition only. Flying in the Cub with no right-hand door basically, and the window open, it was magnificent. Anyway, and that is a highway in front of us, so you just come zipping over that highway and down that hill. But it's normally a left-hand pattern off of this runway. Let's just see if everything still works now that we've reinstalled it. Alright, takeoff power set. It's squirrely just like X-Plane is. We'll rotate it about 85. And up we go. And that seems somewhat nice. Oh, you know, it just occurs to me I forgot to overclock this thing. So we're not overclocked. So let's see what our frame rates are like. They're not bad. As a matter of fact, they're very good. So let's just turn out the way we flew here. Oh, look, palm trees, kids. All right, so that is Candlewood Lake right there. And actually, this is the federal penitentiary at Danbury. This is where they it's like a club fed They put a lot of white-collar criminals in here. That's where all the Watergate criminals went, and it's probably where all of the, well, whatever you call this thing, now where they're going to stay. So let's just bring our props back to about 25. And actually, this is about where we flew. So there we go. I'll just trim out a bit here. And this is ortho scenery and a whole bunch of other stuff besides. That's about right. And flying in the Cub was different. We're going at, you know, about 115 knots right now. In the Cub, you were loafing along. Let me just trim ourselves to level flight. You're loafing along at about 55. You know, you were basically like flying the way you used to drive in the 70s, if you ever drove in the 70s. I'll let the speed build here. Bring the prop back. Let's see, can we see the prison? Maybe the ortho isn't set up. I don't see the prison. But the airplane was a pure pleasure to fly. You can see why Mr. Piper made it that way. Let's be good pilots, at least trim ourselves out a little. Alright, so actually that flies pretty reasonably. Let me just see if the rudder trim works. Just cranking it in now. Yes, it does. Good, good, good. I can't for the life of me find the trim wheel in this plane, but maybe that's just me. There's an airport, an airfield right up there, and let's do maybe a low pass, and maybe we'll drop in on it. It's Candlelight Farms. But basically, I just did a series of maneuvers with the Cub. Oh yeah, this trims out perfectly. I'm pretty much hands off right now. I did some turns, you know, just to get a feel for it. I'd never flown a plane that old or that cherished. And it was beautifully rigged. It didn't take a lot of anything. It was nicely trimmed, nicely set up, beautifully maintained. Actually, I think that is Candlelight Farms right there, because there's a little lake next to it. Let's head over there. Greg Balson sort of did me a little quick and dirty Candlelight Farms, so we can fly in there. Going far too fast. Les and Carol live right up there, although they're moving down to Florida, of course. Let's see if this is in fact the field. I think it is. Oh, it's right here. Okay, yeah, there's the strip. It's a grass strip. Let's just roll down to about 15 pounds of manifold. Come on down. Bring the props out. A little high. There, let's cross over midfield. We'll enter a left downwind. Avoid that. Is that the airport? I think it is. In real life, this thing is all full of vintage planes a lot of the time. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so there's the strip. And there are some of the planes. We'll just fly out to this road here and loop back around. This is the town of New Milford here, and that's the mighty Housatonic River, which is, I mean, one of the most beautiful places on Earth in the fall. I'll slow our asses down a bit. We'll probably be a little high on this approach, but who's counting? All right. Round we come. Down we go. The one thing I learned in a Cub is you can fly a very tight pattern. I can't see the runway. All right, there's the strip right there. We've run this far too wide, but that's okay. Let's retrim a bit. We're going to use full flaps here. Nice grass landing. There we go. Oh, we're in good shape. I could have cut that a whole lot tighter and a whole lot lower. And we're a little high, but not bad. No wind to speak of. Just gonna rotate and keep the nose up as long as we can. It's not a short strip, it's just a grass strip. Okay, and hold the nose off. And we'll get one notch of flaps up and we'll get out of here. Again, I'll just hold the nose off here, keep it light so we don't take too much punishment, and stay in the ground effect right there for a little bit, and come up, and there we go. And we'll get out of Dodge. Now we'll fly the interesting approach into Danbury here as we come up along the river. There, and there's the last finger of the lake. We'll come up to about 1,500 feet. Pattern altitude's about 1,350 feet, and normally you'd enter a left downwind for 8 and a right downwind for 2.6. So we'll anticipate the right downwind. There we go. That's about right. Keep it at a nice scenic altitude. I just want to be able to clear this bluff right there. It's funny, the ortho and everything is good enough that this is more or less how it looked. Although the prison should be visible. There's a complaint. The prison should be visible, he says. But it was just a great day to be out flying. Sorry, what that is right there was I hit the trim switch too exuberantly, and my yoke, which has no sense of in-between, went from fighting me to just letting go entirely, like it worked in a French bordello or something. I have no idea what that means, but you get the idea. So I'm sort of flying with visual reference, so I'm expecting the horizon to be right around that screw right there, and that should get us about, yeah, there we go, it's close enough, get us about 0 rate of climb. In a real plane, it's easier. It's much easier. It's easier to trim out, it's easier to level off, it's easier to maintain an altitude. Everything is easier because the controls move greater distances, there's tactile feedback. In instrument conditions, it's easier to get confused because you've got more sensory inputs to screw with you. But flying around just like this, VFR, it just feels so much nicer. Ty Catstrader got his license, and I'm now rededicating myself to getting mine because I just enjoy it too damn much. It's too much fun. Alright, so we'll split the difference here between these lakes. And that should be the field. Generally speaking, they'll tell you to enter a right or left downwind, report midfield. They'll clear you to land. There's not a crap load of traffic, but it's by no means not a busy airport. There's a fair amount of traffic. There's a lot of students, and there's a lot of helicopter traffic. There's a flight school there. I'm just going to descend now. The tower is really not that big. It's not one of these giant Lego block towers, but you know how that works. So we'll loop around here, and we'll actually enter on the 45 from the correct side here. The other thing they will also do is they'll just enter you into directly into a base leg, but whatevs. We'll just maneuver right here, and we'll come in on the 45 from the other way. That runway, by the way, is an amazingly fun approach through that valley because it's windy, and the wind picks up and leaves off, so it's fun. So this is Route 7. We're over US 7. Start to slow down here. Get some gear out. Get some flapage. Come to 080, give or take. And just slow ourselves down more than anything else. There we go. I'm just going to widen this out a little bit here. See where we are. Okay. This is the city of Danbury. So we're a little high, that's okay. Come down a bit. You can see the displaced threshold there. And you can see the terrain here, which is what makes it a nice little challenge. And wish I could see where we're going. There we go. So there's actually a tower right there where that tree is. And you have to just clear that tower. And then you
500.
just come down this hill. And basically, you're just downhill the whole way. Let's see if we can make the partiers proud here. Just aiming for the first touchdown marker. Let's do that right. Damn it. You know what I did right there. Just get the nose down a bit. What I did right there was I panicked at being high, and I rolled off the power, and I had no elevator authority left. So we'll go around. Just broaden that out a little bit. Come back over 7. And that's 84 at the intersection right there. And that is called the Super 7 intersection. We'll just stay just about it. You have to be at 900 feet above that little obstacle there, so we'll make sure we are. Okay, go gear down, go notch of flaps. Very embarrassing. Although that's exactly how my first landing went in the Arrow. Although I didn't bounce it, I just thumped it. We stayed on the ground. I gave it a holy thwack. That's what makes this airport fun, though. All right, let's get configured maybe a little bit earlier. Maybe not quite be so egregiously high, which really means coming down now, not later. In a Cub, you'd fly this pattern at about half the distance. It's just amazing. It's wonderful. All right, now we're in business. Oh, that's better. Look, I'm even going to roll out okay. That's actually the way you're supposed to do it.
500.
And again, we come just rolling down this hill here. In real life, it's a little bit sharper looking, sharper delineated. There we go. Now we're in business. Properly configured. And I really have no excuse because this airplane actually lands beautifully. See, look at that. There we go. That's what I mean. Let's head back to the party right here. God, Tib actually said to me, you want to taxi this thing, the Cub? And I said, no. Absolutely not. I'll just pull up where we pulled up. And set the parking brake, lean us out. Blow a little bit of crud off the spark plugs. Turn off the avionics and shut her down. Well, anyway, I hope you enjoyed the flight. And I know it wasn't much of a lesson in anything except how to go around when you balk a landing because you land egregiously. But that was more or less my afternoon here at Danbury on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. And once again, congrats to Les on 34 years at the same company, which is, you know, that's an accomplishment in any book. And I can't ask for a nicer flying partner, beer buddy, or sometimes flight instructor. He has never ever led me wrong, and he has always shown me the way. So good travels ahead, Les, and I will see you all again next time. Bye-bye.